That's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call that piece a wonder now. Frau Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Wilt please you sit and look at her? I said Frau Pandolf by design, for never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance, but to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you but I, and seemed as they would ask me, if they durst, how such a glance came there. So, not the first are you to turn and ask thus. Sir, 'twas not her husband's presence only called that spot of joy into the Duchess's cheek. Perhaps Frau Pandolf chanced to say, her mantle laps over my lady's wrist too much, or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half-flush that dies along her throat. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. She had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She liked whatever she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. Sir, 'twas all one. My favor at her breast, the dropping of the daylight into the west. The boughed cherries some officious fool broke in the orchard for her. The white mule she rode with round the terrace. All and each would draw from her alike the approving speech, or blush at least. She thanked men good, but she thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900-year-old name with anybody's gift. Who'd stoop to blame this sort of trifling? Even had you skill in speech, which I do not, to make your will quite clear to such an one, and say, just this or that in you disgusts me, here you miss, or there you exceed the mark. And if she let herself be lessoned so, nor plainly set her wits to yours, forsooth, and made excuse, even then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. Oh, sir, she smiled, no doubt, never I passed her, but who passed without much the same smile? This grew, I gave commands, then all the smiles stopped together. There she stands, as if alive. Wilt you please rise? We'll meet the company below then. I repeat, that counts your master's no munificence, is ample warrant that no just pretense of mine for dowry would be disallowed. Though his fair daughter's self, as I avowed as starting is my object. Nay, we'll go together, sir. Notice Neptune, though, taming a seahorse, thought rarity, which Klaus of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me.
Okay, so the first thing to look at when analyzing any poem is the title. So this is My Last Duchess, which doesn't really tell us that much except that we can expect probably a duke and a duchess. So the next thing to look at is the first thing in the poem is the word Ferrara. And this doesn't really give us much information, but we find out later that this is the Duke of Ferrara who's speaking. So this poem is unlike some of the other ones that we've looked at in that there aren't really any rhetorical devices used. There's no metaphors, there's no similes, no personification. So instead, we're going to break it down and look at what exactly the speaker is saying. So it's kind of convoluted and confusing. So the first thing is the first line where the speaker says, that's my last Duchess painted on the wall. So we get that we're looking at some kind of painting. The next clue is in line 5 when the speaker says, wilt please you sit and look at her. So this tells us that there's someone else in the room with him looking at this painting. Next is the line, the curtain I have drawn for you. So this tells us that the painting is normally hidden from view, but that the speaker has revealed the painting to this other person. Then we get into bringing the Duchess in as more of a character in this poem. So the speaker says, sir, 'twas not her husband's presence only called that spot of joy into the Duchess's cheek, which tells us that the Duchess wasn't happy just when her husband was around. The speaker goes on to say that maybe the artist had given her a compliment of some sort, and that was why she looked happy in the painting. The speaker's more evil intentions come out in the line, she had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed, which shows that the Duke or the speaker thinks that his wife was much too happy, smiled too much, took too much enjoyment out of life, and was happy without him which he disapproved of. He goes on to give some examples of things that made her happy, such as the sunset, or a bough of cherries someone cut for her, or a mule that she rode on, and how he disapproved of the fact that there were things in life that he couldn't control or that she enjoyed without him, and made her just as happy as when he complimented her. Then he accuses her of cheating or being unfaithful in some way when he says she thanked men good. And you see some more jealousy come out right there. Then he moves into a part where he really shows his devious nature when he says, somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900 years old name with anybody's gift, where he's basically saying she should be so thankful that I married her and gave her my name that no other gift that she ever gets or any other experience she ever has comes close to that. Then he moves back to speaking to the other person in the room when he says, who'd stoop to blame this sort of trifling. He goes on to express how he didn't even stoop to address this issue with her or talk to her about why she was making him unhappy, and that he chooses never to stoop. Then the kind of climax of this poem comes when he says, this grew, I gave commands, then all smiles stopped together, which is saying that he had his wife murdered. Because she was too happy and she smiled too much and he felt unappreciated, or that he wasn't given his due acknowledgement for marrying her. Now, the other person's identity is revealed in the next lines when he says, the Count's your master. So we find out that this person is an envoy from another household. Then 2 lines down, he starts talking about the dowry and the Count's fair daughter, which tells us that this Duke is marrying a daughter from that other family which the envoy is from, and that he wants a large dowry. Then the poem ends with pretty much the only symbol, which is the statue of Neptune taming a seahorse, which represents how the Duke wants his new wife to be controlled and tame and do whatever he says. So now we've kind of figured out what this poem is saying and the different pieces of it, we can go to Soapstone. So the speaker is the Duke of Ferrara. The occasion is him marrying a new Duchess from this family. The audience is the envoy from the family of the girl he's marrying. The purpose is to warn the new woman about what he expects from his new wife and to almost threaten the Count to pay him a big dowry so that he doesn't hurt his daughter. The subject is what happened with his last wife and all the ways that she made him unhappy. And the tone is controlling, ominous, and jealous in different pieces of the poem.